Every year, the NES Homebrew scene quietly gets better. More full games, more ambitious ideas, and more projects that feel like they should not exist on this hardware. So this video isn't about nostalgia. It's about what NES games are actually worth playing going into 2026. Some of these feel like lost cartridges from an alternate timeline. Some feel like modern design ideas, somehow squeezed into 1987 hardware. And a few of these are still in development, but already good enough that you should be paying attention. Now, this list is not ranked, except for one, because of course there's one. There's a game at the end of this video that genuinely caught us off guard, and it might be one of the most impressive things to hit the NES Homebrew scene in a long time. So get comfortable, grab a controller, and maybe don't skip ahead, because this is a look at the NES Homebrew games you should absolutely have on your radar for the year ahead. Banana Bash is a single-screen action puzzle game for the NES, and the goal is simple: clear each screen by navigating hazards, enemies, and blocks without screwing yourself over. Which you will, a lot. At first glance, it looks like a rhythm game. It's not. This is way closer to something like Adventures of Lolo, just faster and with less time to think about your life choices. Here's the core idea. You don't freely jump around. You commit to a direction. When you jump, you're locking yourself into going up, down, left, or right until you hit something or land. So every jump is basically you saying, yes, this is the correct decision. Surely nothing bad will happen, and sometimes it works. And sometimes a monkey explodes in your face. What I really like is that there isn't just one solution to most screens. You can wipe out enemies first, or you can ignore them entirely and solve the puzzle while they're trying to ruin your day. There's probably an optimal way, but the game lets you discover that naturally. Difficulty-wise, the demo felt challenging but fair. Each level introduces a new idea, then ramps it up just enough that you usually fail once or twice before it clicks. I never felt cheated. Every death felt like, yeah, that was on me. Once the controls click, they do exactly what you expect. No lag, no weird inputs. It's all about timing and commitment, like NES therapy. Visually, the game is bright, colorful, and super readable. You always know what everything is, which matters a lot when the screen starts filling up. And the music fits perfectly. It keeps things light without getting annoying, which is harder to pull off than it sounds. There's also an overworld map, very much in the Super Mario Bros. 3 tradition, which is a nice way to break up the single screen intensity. And there's a warp mechanic I didn't even understand at first. Until I did, and then I immediately felt smarter than I probably am. Who is this for? If you like puzzle games, you're going to like this. If you hate games like Lolo, I don't know what to tell you. Seek help. Bottom line, Banana Bash is a sharp, confident NES-style action puzzler that respects your intelligence, rewards experimentation, and proves there's still room to do something fresh with single-screen design. Alright, next up we've got Packey. And yes, it's impossible to talk about this game without mentioning Pac-Man. But don't worry, this isn't one of those we changed two things and called it original situations. So what is Packey? At its core, this is a maze-based action game where you play as a rodent collecting raisins while being chased by ghosts. Which already sounds familiar, but Packey's twist is that it's not just about survival, it's about risk. You're constantly balancing, do I play it safe versus can I squeeze a few more points out of this before I get wrecked? And the game really wants you to get greedy. Instead of power pellets, Packey uses power-ups. There's one that freezes time, one that turns the lights on and wipes the ghosts off the screen, and a few others that give you just enough confidence to make very bad decisions. And the scoring system leans hard into this. The longer you collect raisins without breaking the chain, the higher your multiplier climbs. So every turn becomes a question of courage or hubris. One of the smartest things Packey does is ditch the single maze structure entirely. There's a full overworld map, and it works a lot like Super Mario Bros. 3. Beat a level, open a path. Sometimes you get branching routes. It keeps the game feeling fresh, even though the core idea stays simple. And the levels themselves aren't all just mazes. Some feel like puzzles. There's one level that looks like a giant set of dominoes. Another where you have to sneak in, grab the last raisin next to a flame turret, and then escape without getting roasted. Which sounds easy until it very much isn't. Now let's talk controls, because this is where Packey separates itself. Unlike Pac-Man, you can stop on a dime. You're not forced to keep moving. At first, that can feel a little stiff, but pretty quickly, you realize that stiffness is actually a feature, not a flaw. It gives you control. It turns the game into more of a thinking exercise than a reflex test. Visually, Packey is doing exactly what it needs to do. Everything is clear, you always know what you're looking at. And if you've played other Turtle Time media games, there are some fun visual Easter eggs baked in. There's even a level inspired by 8-bit bricks. They're physical NES-style building blocks. Yes, that's extremely on brand. The music and sound design are solid. Nothing here is trying to steal the show, but the tunes fit the game, stay catchy, and don't get annoying. Difficulty-wise, Packey ramps up nicely. Early levels ease you in. Later levels absolutely expect you to understand how the game works. Packey isn't trying to replace Pac-Man. It's doing something adjacent and smarter than it looks at first glance. If you like score chasing, controlled risk, and maze games that evolve instead of repeating themselves, this one's absolutely worth your time. Just don't blame the game when your greed gets you caught. Okay, next up we've got Mr. Scary for the NES, a homebrew platformer from Cal Games. The premise here is pretty simple. You're playing as Mr. Scary, hopping through spooky Halloween-themed stages, dodging enemies, making jumps, and trying not to fall into pits. Which, spoiler alert, you absolutely will. Now, I didn't grow up with this one, obviously, but I do have a soft spot for classic NES platformers that just say, here's the level, good luck. Mechanically, this is a straight-up NES precision platformer. You move, you jump, you time enemies, and you learn real fast what you can and cannot get away with. It's about careful movement, judging distance, and waiting for the right moment instead of rushing in like an idiot. Ask me how I know. There are power-ups, but they're supportive, not central. They help in specific situations, especially with awkward enemy placement, but they don't suddenly turn you into a superhero. You still have to make the jumps. You still have to time things correctly. The game never lets you outsource skill. The first big standout mechanic isn't even a mechanic. It's the pace. Mr. Scary forces you to slow down. This is old school NES learning. You're not being punished, you're being trained. Difficulty-wise, this sits in a really solid space. Not easy, not brutal. Visually, the game absolutely nails its identity. Clean sprite work, great readability, Halloween atmosphere without going full horror movie. The main character is especially memorable. He's creepy cute, has a strong silhouette, and honestly feels like an NES mascot you'd remember from a rental shelf. The music leans Halloween too. Spooky, playful, never overwhelming. It sets the tone without distracting you from surviving. Bottom line, Mr. Scary is a classic NES-style challenge that really opens up once you get comfortable with how it wants you to move. If you like precision platformers, Halloween vibes, and earning progress the old-fashioned way, this one's absolutely worth checking out. And yeah, you're probably going to fall into a pit, but you'll know exactly why. Alright, let's talk about Necro Nancy. And fair warning up front, this game does not ease you in. This is pure arcade energy, no warm-up. You're either ready or you're dead. At its core, Necro Nancy is a one-screen arcade pressure cooker. Everything happens right here. The intensity ramps up fast, and your job is to manage chaos before it spills over the line and ends the run. No exploration, just pressure. What immediately pulled me in was the audio-visual punch. The music hits hard, right away, dark, aggressive, and honestly, kind of badass. You've got glowing characters, eyeball motifs, ghost designs, and this corrupted horror vibe that feels like the NES is being possessed in real time. Mechanically, the big aha moment comes when you realize this is almost like reverse kaboom. Instead of saving things from falling, you're controlling space, timing screen clears, and preventing the screen from filling up and collapsing on you. Once you see it that way, the entire game snaps into focus. From there, it's all about execution. Difficulty here is high and constantly escalating, but it's fair. You understand the rules quickly. The challenge is keeping it together as the screen fills with danger. No cheap shots, just consequences. This is absolutely a replay-driven game. Short runs, high scores, one more try energy. You're not replaying to unlock story beats, you're replaying to survive longer, play cleaner, and manage chaos better. And knowing the full game expands into dozens of stages, bosses, and secrets? Yeah, that makes sense. So, who is Necro Nancy for? If you love arcade games, if you like score chasing, if you want something intense, dark, and focused, this will hit. Who is it not for? If you want downtime, exploration, or a game that waits for you to get comfortable, this thing will not wait for you. Necro Nancy works because it knows exactly what it is, and it never apologizes for it. No padding, no genre confusion, just mood, pressure, and execution. And that restraint? That's exactly why it works. Alright, next up we've got Aethos, a sci-fi exploration platformer that immediately tells you this one wants you to think. You play as Kyra, an AI explorer sent to investigate the planet Aethos, because Earth's atmosphere is shot and humanity is basically out of backup plans. No pressure or anything. I didn't come into this one expecting a full-on Metroidvania experience on NES hardware, but pretty quickly I realized that's exactly what it's aiming for. Mechanically, this is an exploration-focused platformer. You move, jump, hover, explore, backtrack, and slowly unlock abilities that let you reach places you could see earlier but couldn't access yet. And that loop is the heart of the game. Once the hovering and energy system clicked, everything changed. Energy crystals in the environment aren't decoration, they're the whole puzzle. You charge energy, you hover, the energy drains, and suddenly, movement becomes a planning exercise instead of brute force. That's the big, oh, I get it now moment. The world opens up, and instead of asking, where do I go, you start thinking, oh, I can reach that now. Classic Metroidvania stuff, done with restraint. And I really appreciated that the game doesn't hold your hand. There's no glowing arrows, no checklist. You're encouraged to explore, pay attention, and remember things. Difficulty-wise, this isn't punishing, but it is mentally engaging. Controls feel responsive and predictable. Hovering becomes a tool, not a crutch. And the pacing really works. Visually, Aethos is clean and readable, minimal without being bland. The player sprite is small and charming. Environments are easy to parse. Nothing fights your eyes. The music stood out more than once. Not loud, not distracting. Just solid, atmospheric tracks that reinforce the lonely sci-fi exploration vibe. Here's my honest line in the sand. If you need constant direction or instant action, this is probably not your game. But if you like exploring, backtracking, and figuring things out without a guide, this one's gonna stick with you. Bottom line, Aethos is a thoughtful, well-paced NES Metroidvania that rewards curiosity and patience over speed. It's the kind of game you keep thinking about even when you're not playing it, and that's usually a really good sign. All Hell Unleashed is an NES Homebrew action game from Fista Productions, and this is one of those rare cases where a homebrew immediately feels bigger than homebrew. The setup is pure horror excess. A cult messes up a ritual, an amulet shatters, and suddenly, the worst monsters in horror history are loose. Your job is simple. Hunt them down. Collect the amulet fragments, seal hell back up. You know, typical Tuesday. The first thing that hit me with this game wasn't the difficulty, it was the confidence. This doesn't feel like, hey, check out what I made. It feels like a lost, late-era NES cartridge that somehow slipped through the cracks. Mechanically, this is a deliberate action platformer. Boss fights are the entire backbone of this game. Each horror icon has its own patterns, phases, and rules, and the game does not ease you into it. If you start with Jason, you might think, wow, This is brutal. Bosses only become vulnerable at specific moments. Difficulty here is old school in the best way. Hard, but fair. Visually, this game absolutely rips. Sprites are expressive and instantly readable. The soundtrack deserves special mention. The Elm Street homage especially hits that perfect balance between creepy and catchy. Music never overwhelms gameplay, but it absolutely carries atmosphere. Technically, this is extremely impressive for a homebrew. This is clearly several steps beyond Fista's earlier projects. One important update here. There is now a version 6.66, which expands the game in meaningful ways. You can play as Ash Williams or Jason Voorhees, each with their own intros and endings. Balance tweaks, new minigames, refined cheats, and a bunch of smart quality of life updates. It's a proper expanded edition. The unfortunate reality is this game can't be officially sold due to licensing, but the fact that it exists at all and is free is kind of insane. Bottom line, All Hell Unleashed is a fully realized NES action game that understands its influences and commits completely to its vision. It's not just a novelty crossover. It's not just good for homebrew. It's a genuinely strong, demanding, memorable NES game. If this had existed in 1989, it would have been controversial, expensive, and rented into dust. Fista absolutely crushed it. Mega Kaiju Boom Ball is an NES homebrew action game from Ore Body Inc., with music by Jordan Davis of Raft Labs Interactive. And the easiest way to picture it is this. This is Breakout filtered through boss fights, screen progression, and just enough chaos to keep you on edge. Structurally, the game uses a Mega Man-style stage select. That works really well here because each zone plays a little differently, and it lets you approach on your own terms. If one area isn't clicking yet, you can bounce to another, learn the systems, and come back better prepared. The ball is the real weapon. Your job is to keep that ball in play, route it into weak points, crack open the environment, and slowly dismantle these giant kaiju one section at a time. Half the tension here comes from protecting the ball while everything else is trying to distract you, block you, or knock it into the void. Difficulty-wise, I played on easy because that's how I like to approach games the first time through. It lets me learn the systems, see the content, and decide if I want to push harder later. You can absolutely make this game impossible for yourself. Stage design does a lot of work here. Different areas introduce new wrinkles like portals, environmental objectives, and monsters that force you to rethink how you move and where you stand. Visually, this game looks great. The monsters hit that perfect line between scary and chibi. The music is a standout. Jordan absolutely delivers here. Each stage's track fits its theme, whether it's an island, the depths, or somewhere that feels like it probably shouldn't exist. It's impressive how much variety and mood they squeeze out of NES sound channels. One thing I really appreciate is that this game doesn't overcomplicate itself, and it lets Discovery do the heavy lifting. I've seen Breakout done a lot of different ways in recent homebrew, and this is a genuinely fresh take. If I had to sum it up, Mega Kaiju Boom Ball is a smart, stylish arcade game that proves there's still plenty of room to experiment inside classic genres. If you like Breakout-style physics, boss-driven chaos, and games that reward patience over panic, this one is absolutely worth your time. Cease and Desist is a new NES beat-em-up from Retrotainment, and the premise is simple in the best possible way. You move to the right, punch everything in your path, and survive a world that looks like a bootleg cartoon universe that somehow escaped the flea market and made it onto a cartridge. The first thing that grabbed me was the look. It's got this incredible, wrong but right art style. Like Donald Duck wandered into a bootleg Simpsons episode, and everyone decided to fight about it. It looks like a bootleg on purpose, but it's done with real care. Bright colors, weird characters, and enemies that feel familiar even though you know you've never actually seen them before. Gameplay-wise, it took me a few seconds to pin down what it reminded me of. This plays a lot like Battletoads. You've got your basic attacks, a jump, and then a powered-up punch that you can trigger with a button press. When you use it, enemies go flying into the background, and it never stops being satisfying. And they're generous with those power-ups too, which keeps the pace moving and makes you feel strong without completely breaking the game. If you've played NES beat-em-ups before, you'll feel at home immediately. And when you punch something, you feel it. Between the animation, the sound effects, and the way enemies react, it has that chunky, weighty impact that great beat-em-ups live or die on. Difficulty-wise, this demo felt fair the entire time. I never felt overwhelmed or cheap-shotted, even when the screen got crowded. Enemies are aggressive, but they don't just dogpile you non-stop. I assume later stages or difficulty settings will push harder, but what I played felt very playable and very fun. Controls are solid, no lag, no stiffness, nothing fighting you. For something still in beta, it already feels dialed in. Movement is responsive, attacks come out when you expect them to, and the game never feels like it's betraying you. The audio and visuals really sell it, and the art direction commits fully to the bootleg theme. The first enemy you fight is literally a half-man, half-donut. That tells you everything you need to know about the tone. It's weird, colorful, and confident. If I had to put a flag in the ground, it's this. Cease and Desist could have been a gimmick joke game, but instead, it feels like a legitimate NES beat-em-up that just happens to be hilarious. That's not easy to pull off. This one's for anyone who loves classic NES beat-em-ups and doesn't mind a game that's loud, fast, and unapologetically in your face. If someone asked me whether they should care about Cease and Desist, my answer would be simple. If you like punching weird cartoon monsters on the NES and actually feeling the hits land, yeah, you should absolutely keep an eye on this one. Hazard is an NES Homebrew action platformer with Mega Man energy. Mechanically, this is simple. Run, jump, shoot, survive. But it's not pure twitch. It's got that old school, learn the setup thing, where you figure out the trick and then execute. Your shot has a lob to it. Once you realize you're playing arcs and timing, the whole game gets easier. Also, your weapon is basically a crinkle-cut french fry. Hazard said, violence, but make it appetizers. Difficulty. It has spikes, mostly around jumps and tight sections. But it feels demanding, not cheap. Most deaths are, yep, that's on me. Controls feel responsive. It's got a little weight to it, and once you're dialed in, it plays clean. Pixel art is sharp, the vibes are weird in a good way, and the music keeps carrying. The soundtrack is instantly, oh, this is legit. Then Hazard does its signature move. The game hits you with choices like rescue versus get heart, and later it escalates into a full courtroom twist with a 1 month later jump like it's an NES soap opera. Bottom line, Hazard is a stylish, Mega Man-ish action platformer with great music and a surprisingly ambitious story mode. If you like NES games that make you learn, adapt, and then reward you, it's worth your time. Just remember, if you pick Get Heart over Rescue, you're the villain now. So next up, we've got Adventures of Panzer Frontiers for the NES. The fourth Panzer game, and probably the weirdest one in the series in the best way. This one feels like Panzer goes west. You're riding a horse, blasting enemies, dodging hazards, and moving through side-scrolling stages that feel part shooter, part platformer, and part, what if R-Type fell off a horse? Story-wise, Panzer Frontiers keeps that trademark Panzer tone. Big ego, big personality, lots of jokes. And the cutscenes are a highlight. These Panzer games have always nailed character writing, and this one's no different. The game knows Panzer is kind of a blowhard, and it absolutely leans into it. Mechanically, this is not a standard run and gun. It's closer to a side-scrolling shooter, but instead of a spaceship, you're on the ground, constantly moving forward on horseback. It almost feels like an endless runner that decided to become a bullet hell, and then remembered it was on the NES. You shoot, dodge, jump, and react fast. Enemies come in patterns, hazards stack up, and no, you're probably not beating stages on your first try. That's by design. This game expects you to learn the levels. Classic NES logic. Difficulty is real here. Even on easy, which I played on because that's where I live. But once you learn enemy patterns and stage layouts, your performance improves fast. There are multiple playable characters, each with different stats like speed, life, and weapon power. Panzer himself actually feels a little weaker, which makes experimenting with other characters worth it. That alone adds replay value, because each character changes how you approach the same stage. Visually, this game looks great. Strong pixel art, great parallax scrolling. Each stage has a clear identity, including some fun nods like a TMNT-style sewer level and a frozen highway section where snowflakes act like visual noise. Very Ninja Gaiden energy. The music absolutely deserves a shout-out. Kevin81 did the soundtrack, and yeah, it slaps. It's the kind of music that makes retries feel less painful, which is important because you will be retrying. If I had to compare this to anything, it's like Contra energy, R-type pressure, and NES shooter difficulty all smashed together on a horse. Which is a sentence I didn't expect to say today. Bottom line, Adventures of Panzer Frontiers is a genuinely fun, challenging, and weird NES shooter that rewards learning, pattern recognition, and patience. It's not meant to be beaten casually, but it is meant to be beaten. And once it clicks, it's hard to put down. Quick bonus spotlight here, because if you just watch Panzer Frontiers, this is going to be very relevant to your interests. There's a new Panzer universe game in development called Blarghe, and this one is aiming straight at action-first NES gameplay. And I don't mean cool idea, I mean this looks fun to control. The big pitch here is Mega Man X-style energy on the NES. Faster movement, more aggression, less waiting around. Blarghe gets mobility moves you don't usually see push this hard on 8-bit hardware. Wall grabs, wall jumps, sliding down walls, a dash, and even an air dash style move. So immediately, this looks like a game built around momentum, not just survival. They've shown off early footage of set-piece stages, including a rooftop level, and you can tell there's real care going into atmosphere and level flavor, not just here's some platforms. Boss fights are also a big focus. There's a new boss concept called Bolinder, and it already looks like the kind of fight where you're learning patterns, not just emptying health bars. One thing that really stands out here is the attention to detail. Little animation touches, personality in movement, that feeling that someone is obsessing over how this plays, not just how it looks. And there's a fun tone underneath it all. Blarghe is clearly being framed as this overpowered star, while Panzer kind of feels like the sidekick who still thinks he's in charge, which, honestly, just makes the universe feel more alive. So yeah, this one's not out yet, but if you're into fast NES action, mobility-heavy platforming, and homebrew that's trying to push the feel of the hardware forward, keep your eye on Blarghe. This one's shaping up to be something special. Alright, another quick bonus spotlight. This is Tactus, a rhythm-based dungeon crawler being built for the original NES and Famicom. Tactus is built around moving and fighting to the beat. Enemies move when you move, you attack when the rhythm says it's time. If you rush or panic, the dungeon eats you alive. Games like this already exist. Crypt of the Necro Dancer, Cadence of Hyrule, and people love them. I've always admired that style. I've just never fully trained my brain for it. But here's why it still makes the list. The presentation is unreal. The music isn't just good for NES, it's the point. This game is using modern homebrew hardware to push audio way beyond what you expect from an 8-bit system. The visuals are clean, readable, and stylish. The atmosphere feels deliberate. It looks like a finished idea that knows what it wants to be. So for now, I'm putting Tactus here as a bonus spotlight, because I want to come back when I'm ready to actually dance with it instead of stepping on its toes. If you're into rhythm games, experimental dungeon crawlers, or NES homebrew that pushes new ground instead of reskinning old ideas, this is absolutely one to keep your eye on. And hey, there's a decent chance the next time you see this game, I'll finally be able to keep time. Underworld is either a long-lost early 90s NES RPG tied to Splatterhouse, or the most convincing, trust me bro, homebrew of all time. And honestly, that mystery is part of the fun. This showed up out of nowhere after a weird VHS surfaced in 2024, then suddenly, in 2025, there's a playable ROM with an English translation. Yeah, totally normal. Happens all the time. So what is it? This is a classic turn-based JRPG on NES. Top-down exploration, menu-based combat, random encounters everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You walk 5 steps and the game's like, fight me. At first, that sounds annoying, but once you understand the system, it's actually pretty fair. You level up fast, battles don't feel cheap, and the grind kind of balances itself out. Tone-wise, this isn't hardcore horror. It's cute, campy, and very Splatterhouse adjacent. The characters look like they wandered out of a splattery Famicom fever dream. Creepy, but in a Saturday morning monster way. The English translation deserves real credit here. It's clean, readable, and full of little puns that actually fit the world, which is impressive because bad fan translations can turn a game into unintentional horror real fast. Mechanically, it's straightforward JRPG stuff. Menus, stats, items, turn-based battles. Nothing revolutionary, but also nothing broken. It just plays like an NES RPG should. Now here's the honest take. Do I 100% believe this was secretly finished in 1993 and hidden for 30 years? I have questions. But whether this is lost media, a prototype, or an extremely convincing fan project, it feels authentic enough that it doesn't really matter. If you like Splatterhouse, classic NES RPGs, or you just want a weird Halloween season game that feels like it crawled out of a cursed cartridge bin, this one's worth your time. Just be ready to fight something every 5 steps. Alright, yeah, you probably knew this one was coming. And yes, there was really only one place it could go. So let's talk about Angry Video Game Nerd for the NES. And before we even get into the AVGN stuff, let's say this clearly. If you strip the license off completely, if this wasn't tied to the show at all, this would still be a damn good NES action game. At its core, AVGN is a run-and-gun platformer that wears its Mega Man influence proudly. You choose stages, you fight themed bosses, you learn patterns, you get better. The big difference is, you don't steal boss powers. Instead, the challenge comes from mastering the levels themselves and surviving encounters that are intentionally designed to be stressful, which feels appropriate. Right away, the polish is obvious. The sprites are big, detailed, and expressive. Hitboxes are fair. Enemy placement makes sense. This is one of those games where when you die, you usually think, yeah, that one's on me, occasionally followed by yelling. Difficulty-wise, AVGN is no joke. Even on the easier setting, this isn't a casual stroll. You'll probably want to clear it once before bumping it up. Normal difficulty expects you to learn enemy behavior, respect platforming precision, and stop trying to brute force everything. Again, on brand. The music absolutely pulls its weight here. There are legit bangers. This is very much in that classic Mega Man zone where certain tracks stick in your head long after you shut the NES off. And the sound effects? They're exactly what you want them to be. Nothing feels off. Nothing feels cheap. Now, the humor. If you're familiar with the AVGN show, there are Easter eggs everywhere. Parodies of infamous games, visual gags, enemies and bosses pulled straight from nerd lore. There's a mid-level boss that is literally a giant turd. I feel like that explains the tone pretty well. But here's the important part. The jokes never get in the way of the gameplay. If you've never watched AVGN in your life, the game still works. Boss fights are a highlight. You'll recognize parodies of things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Fester-style nonsense, mascot-adjacent knockoffs that absolutely know what they're doing. Each fight has its own rhythm, tells, and Oh, that's the trick moment, which is exactly what you want. Final verdict? AVGN earns its spot here not because of the name, but because it sets a ceiling. This is what happens when a recognizable license is paired with an actual respect for how these games are supposed to feel, and it absolutely deserves to be played on real hardware. So yeah, you stayed till the end. You knew it'd be here. And honestly, it earned it. So that's our list. 10 games that prove, without question, that the NES isn't done yet. Not retro cute. Not for a homebrew. Actually, good. If you've played any of these, let us know which one hit for you. And if we missed one, tell us what we screwed up in the comments. We can take it, probably. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still thinks the NES peaked in 1989. And if you want deeper dives, full playthroughs, and devs showing up in the comments to defend their life choices, you know where to find us. Until next time, keep your carts clean, your jump timing tight, and never trust a game that says it's easy.